Welcome to the Bison Information Network. I'm Logan Genneberg, and tonight I'll be taking you through the latest in campus and local news. Stay tuned. NDSU is getting a peek behind the curtain at Hollywood as students and the public alike will get their chance to talk to the producer of The Hong Konger. The two-day event will begin in the Louise Berry Auditorium Thursday night at 7 p.m. with a film screening, followed Friday morning in the Beckwith Recital Hall at 10 a.m. with a Q&A with both the producer and a Hong Kong public activist. The event will feature Eric Cohn, the producer of the award-winning film, who is also the executive producer of the Acton Institute Podcast Network. Joining him will be Francis Hui, the first public activist to receive political asylum in the U.S. Hui has been extremely involved writing journalistic pieces and advocating in Washington to this day. Sticking with the movie trend, you can help celebrate Veterans Day by participating in Veterans Movie Night. Students will have the opportunity to make the cards for local veterans while watching two popular films. The film Dog will begin showing at 6 p.m., followed afterwards by 1917, which will start at 8. The event will be held this upcoming Wednesday in the Hidatsa Room of the Memorial Union. If you're graduating this year, you are already well aware of how stressful finding that perfect career can be. Luckily for you, Frito-Lay will be headed to NDSU for Company Spotlight Day. Frito-Lay will be on campus to promote both full-time and summer internship jobs, so even if you're not graduating, there are still other opportunities available. Frito-Lay will be at the Berry Hall Atrium this Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and will also be hosting on-campus interviews on Wednesday. If you or someone you know are interested, feel free to stop by their table and learn more. Now, a strange story coming out of Australia this week as the host of a weekend family lunch has been charged with murder. The host was charged for murdering 3 of her guests with poisonous mushrooms and attempting to murder a 4th who was left fighting for their life in the hospital, police say. Australian police arrested 49-year-old Erin Patterson last Thursday at her home in Leongatha. Patterson had invited her former husband's parents, Gail and Don Patterson, and Gail's sister Heather and her husband Ian Wilkinson. All 4 guests were hospitalized the next day, with only Ian Wilkinson surviving. This is not her first encounter with law enforcement, however, as Erin was also charged with 3 counts of attempted murder after her former husband, Simon Patterson, became ill after eating 3 meals in 2021 and 2022. He was not in attendance for that 4th of July lunch. Erin Patterson will remain in police custody until she appears in court on Friday, where she can apply to be released on bail. She has publicly denied any wrongdoing, claiming that she was devastated. Police say that the symptoms the 4 diners suffered were in line with symptoms suffered from death cap mushrooms. If convicted, the potential maximum sentence would be 25 years in prison. Concordia College has announced a program that will allow students to be covered for their full tuition. The Concordia Promise, a program that will cover full tuition for any newly admitted student, will begin in the fall of next year. The requirements: the student must be either an incoming first-year or transfer student, be eligible to file FAFSA, report a gross income of less than $90,000, and maintain satisfactory academic progress. The promise is renewable for up to 4 years and includes 100% of standard full-time tuition. However, housing, food, fees, and other additional costs are not included. The Concordia Promise was inspired by Minnesota's North Star Promise, which offers $80,000 but is only extended to Minnesota students. Concordia hopes that this new program will help their many students bring the career with minimal debt and allow them to better excel. Tuesday, November 1st will forever be remembered as a sad day in basketball circles, as Indiana legend Bob Knight has passed away. The brilliant and combustible head coach won 3 NCAA titles at Indiana and was recognized across the country as the scowling face of college basketball. Knight was among the winningest and most controversial coaches in history, finishing with 902 wins stretched over 42 seasons at Army, Indiana, and Texas Tech. He also coached the U.S. Olympic team to a gold medal in 1984. Knight will be remembered not only for his legendary success, but his even more legendary temper. Some incidents include hitting a police officer in Puerto Rico, throwing a chair across the basketball court, and being accused of wrapping his hands around a player's neck. But, to Knight's defense, the former coach took pride in his players' high graduation rates and was never accused of a major NCAA violation. He also insisted that his base salary not exceed that of other professors, even giving some of it back at Texas Tech. One thing is for sure, Knight impacted the game far and wide, coaching legends both on the court and on the sideline, and forever changing basketball and all who have watched it. We truly have lost one of the greatest coaches, and he will be sorely missed. Coming up after the break, I have your Bison Sports Report for this past week. Don't go away.
Founded in 1985, the Missouri Valley Football Conference has established a tradition of FCS football excellence. Competing at the highest level of NCAA Division I, student athletes at its 10 institutions demonstrate character, passion, and integrity as they grow as a student, an athlete, and a citizen. The Missouri Valley Football Conference, where leaders are shaped and champions are forged.
One kid, one mentor, plus one moment can unlock limitless potential. 30,000 youth are waiting. Be there for one of them. Become a big today.
At NDSU, we're going to teach you about how to work with people. We're going to teach you about relationships with people and how to manage those relationships successfully, whether that's at work, whether that's at home. We have majors in agricultural communication, strategic communication, journalism, and management communication. We have students who have graduated who are doing all kinds of different things, everything from marketing to writing content to development to career coaching. We also, of course, have people doing more traditional things like news reporter or working for TV stations. The faculty members in our department advise undergraduate students. We think that it's important for faculty to develop relationships with our undergrads. We have an advisory board, and that consists of people in the community who are like local business people, and we try to make connections with those people so that literally we know the person that they should talk to about a job. You can't be in the world if you can't communicate. My recommendation is that you take some communication classes at the very least if you can. Even better, do a major in communication.
Welcome to the first Bison Sports Report of November. Kicking off the new month with a football team, the Bison were fresh off their biggest blowout of the year against a lowly Western Illinois team. And they would play host to what should be another easy win in a Murray State team still trying to find its footing. This game lived up to the expectations with the Bison stampeding Murray State as they jumped out to a 28-0 lead in the first half. Murray State would get on the board before half, but it barely made any difference as NDSU would hold on to their massive lead for the remainder of the game. The Bison dominated all three facets of the game, putting up 380 yards and 4 touchdowns on offense, getting 3 sacks and an interception on defense, and even scoring on a punt return in a 38-6 win. Cam Miller was an absolute force, putting up 250 total yards and 4 touchdowns. Zach Mathis was once again on the highlight reel with 74 yards and a touchdown. And Logan Kopp was a defensive monster yet again with 7 tackles, half a sack, a forced fumble, and an interception. After the lighter 2-game stretch of the season, we have finally arrived at that game circled on every Bison fan's calendar. The Bison will travel south in the game of the year as they face an undefeated South Dakota State team. Now the Bison will aim to not only hand the Jackrabbits their first loss, but possibly secure a playoff spot as well. The vaunted matchup will kick off this Saturday at 2 p.m. It can be watched on ESPN Plus or ABC North Dakota. Now, although we may be in the midst of football season, basketball fans were treated to their first action of the young season as NDSU hosted St. Olaf this past Friday. Even though the game was expected to be all NDSU, the final score would still shock the biggest Bison faithful. The Bison embarrassed St. Olaf with a 93-50 beatdown, but the final score doesn't tell the whole tale, as St. Olaf only scored 11 whole points in the second half. They shot an embarrassing 16% from the field and failed to score a single 3 in that half. This failure to score allowed the Bison to simply coast to what might be their most stress-free win of the season. Javis Miller led the Bison with 19 points, 5 boards, and a steal. The big man Andrew Morgan contributed 15 points to go with 5 boards. And sophomore Lance Waddles was near perfect from 3, with 13 points, 3 assists, and 75% shooting from 3. The men will be on the road this week as they head to Kalamazoo to take on Western Michigan. The game will tip off next Monday at 6 p.m. and can be watched on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus. But the men's team will not be the only basketball action this next week, as the women will kick off their season in a neutral site game. The women will look to lean on the sharpshooting of young star Elle Evans, 3-time All-Summit League guard Heaven Hamlin, and Heaven's younger sister, Taryn Hamlin. The Bison will look to build off a season in which they went 18-12, but they dominated conference play with a 12-6 record. Yet this year's team will have one goal in mind: performing stronger in playoff competition, as last year's team was sent home in the first round of both the Summit League Tournament and the WNIT. This journey will start with a matchup against Creighton, as the Bison will travel to Sioux Falls in a neutral site game. The game will tip off this Monday also at 6 and can be watched on Sanford Sports or listened to on Bison 1660. In other women's sports, the volleyball team returns home after a 2-game road trip this past week. The team bus headed to Kansas City last Thursday as the Bison kicked off the trip against a strong Kansas City Roos team. The game started off with both teams deadlocked in a struggle, as the first set was a 35-35 tie before NSU finally cracked through to secure the point. The rest of the match would not be as grueling, as they would win the second point with ease before taking the third and final with a surprising sweep on the road against the home favorites. This would mark the 4th straight game in which the Bison did not surrender a set. Allie Hinsey was once again the MVP as she recorded 17 kills to go 18 digs and 3 blocks. Lauren Jansen continues to impress with 14 kills, 7 digs, and a block. And Kelly Johnson filled the stat sheet with 4 kills, 8 digs, and 52 assists. Now after their 4th win in a row, all of them being shutout wins, the team headed to Nebraska to take on an Omaha squad that had struggled out of conference, but had so far been strong against other Summit League teams. But the win streak held strong as the Bison stole the first set before dropping the next, their first loss set in 5 games. However, they would rally to seize the next 2 sets, riding home with a comfortable 3-1 win. Allie Hinsey kept her amazing season rolling with 17 kills to go alongside 10 digs and 5 blocks. Alexis Bowling joined her with 11 kills, 4 digs, and 10 blocks. And Lauren Jansen had a solid day with 9 kills and a dig. After the 2 dominant wins, the Bison now sit in the midst of a 5-game win streak where they have outscored their opponents 15-1. They will put that streak to the test tonight as they host South Dakota State in a greenout match. That match will start at 7 p.m. and can be watched on the Summit League Network. After weeks of preparation, both cross-country teams headed off to Brookings this past Saturday to compete in the Summit League Championships. Starting with the men's team, it was a historic day for the Bison, as they finished with 46 points, tying for first with South Dakota State, but they sadly lost due to a tiebreaker rule, giving them runner-up honors. However, it would be the highest conference meet finish for the Bison since 1982, when they won the North Central Conference title. NECU also put 6 runners in the top 14, something that has never been done in the Bison Summit League history. Senior Zach Johnson left his mark on history by leading the Bison with a 24:44 time for 3rd place. Simon Kaiser followed him by clinching 8th with a 24:55 time, and Hunter Klimek took 10th with 24:57. Johnson also earned all Summit League first-team honors, with Kaiser, Klimek, Smith, Mahar, and Arison all claiming second-team honors. Johnson's 3rd place finish was also a Bison best since 2007. Now the women also had a strong day, claiming 3rd place out of the 8 conference teams with a total score of 69. South Dakota claimed the conference title with a score of 50, winning a tight race with South Dakota State. Surprisingly though, the Bison had more top 20 runners than either team ahead of them, but they were unable to crack that top 5, which cost them their title shot. Junior Grace Link led the way with a 21:20 time, taking 7th place. Reagan Baszler followed her up by taking 11th with a 21:38 time, and the next 4 Bison took 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, with freshman Logan Hars leading the consecutive finishes with a 21:59 time. After an emotional conference championship meet, both teams will get a little bit of time to rest and reset before heading down to Stillwater, Oklahoma to compete in the NCAA Midwest Regionals. The meet will kick off November 10th at 10:30 for the women and 11:30 for the men. Best of luck to both teams and represent us well. Now for North Dakota residents, the golf season has been over for quite some time already. The men's team managed to sneak one last invitational in before a long winter rest. The men headed down to Mexico to compete in the Monterrey International Intercollegiate, where they would nearly steal the show, taking 2nd of the 10 teams invited. The Bison missed out on 1st place by 1 measly point, as Utah State would do just enough to stay out of reach. Regardless, it was a great showing for the Bison, tying for their best finish on the season, yet keeping their top 5 without taking first streak alive. The Bison were led by Nate Adams, who played admirably with a 12-under par score to gift him 6th place. Gavin Cronkite and Jake Scarperud both shot 7-under par to tie for 13th. As mentioned earlier, it will be some time before the men tee off again, as their next invite will not be until late February. Enjoy that mid-season break. Now last but not least, wrestling will kick off soon for an NDSU team that is looking to climb back into the top 25 rankings. The Bison will have their work cut out for them though, as they have only 5 upperclassmen on the roster. Making it all the harder for them, they will have their first match be hosted against a powerhouse team in number 9 Nebraska. Best of luck to the Bison this year, and here's to a hot start to the season. That's all I have this week for the Bison Sports Report. Now with November underway, that typically means we start to see those temperatures begin to drop heavily. Ethan, what does the weather look like for the week ahead?
You're absolutely right, Logan. We have some much colder temps this week, and so today we were spending the time oscillating between freezing as well as beneath it, and so snow is going to be on the ground. You're going to be seeing that pretty much from this point on, and you can expect that going into next week and so forth. I'm just grateful that we didn't have as much snow on Halloween as we have had in previous years. With the hour-by-hour forecast today, we were spending time, like I said, in overcast, just below freezing. The skycast today was sitting at just below 10 hours, and so we're starting to get into those winter months, and as a result, there's not as much sunshine. So you can expect things to start darkening around 6 p.m. these days. And as for the moon phases, we actually have a waning gibbous. Now that is what we just had after a full moon quite recently over the weekend. Looking at today's almanac, we were sitting at a high of 84 in 1956 as well as a low of 13 degrees in 1919. I feel bad for them. We had a high of 39 today and a low of 22. As for the weather across the country, you can see here in the north that we are sitting in that freezing range, with Minnesota actually getting the worst of it and Maine following suit at 34 degrees across the country there. Florida's doing pretty nice down in the near 80s, and a little bit jealous of them, but the mid-region of the country is still having some pretty good fall weather, and I'm sure they've got some color on their trees at this point. As for the activity across the country, we are doing pretty well with just the northwest getting some rain there. As for the 7-day forecast, our first Friday is going to be sunny, luckily, and we're going to have some temps above freezing come Saturday and Sunday. Through the rest of the week, however, we're going to have nothing but overcast. So try to get outside this Friday and Saturday, enjoy the little bit of sunny weather that we have left, and expect to be in freezing temps throughout the rest of the week. That's it for weather. You can catch us next week. But Logan?
If summer wasn't officially over, it is now after hearing that weather report. And to think we get to experience this for the next 5 months at least. Well, that's all we have for you here tonight at the Bison Information Network. We greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to tune in and hope you all have a good weekend. Take care.